There we go. Um, so I'll start out by saying that I don't have a ton for us tonight, mainly because this is the time of year when we try to back off of district and conference stuff because we know so much is going on in our local churches, and so I've got a few things, but then we'll open it up. Travis can speak for a minute, and then if you all have questions, comments, concerns, we want to field those. And then I've got a video that I would like for us to watch and then talk about. But I don't anticipate us going more than 45 minutes or so tonight. So we'll get you all out and away and finishing your supper or whatever it is you need to do this evening. So that's our plan. So I will start, and this is church conference season, so we're getting those rolling. A few forms that are, you all know this already. We have a few forms that we really need this week and next week, and before December 1st, the compensation forms this week, and then those advisory forms by December 1st, and everything else on its own schedule. But those are the things we need quickly. I want to share with you, hopefully you all have seen this already, but most of what we want to talk about tonight is stuff that is in our Engaging ESCO update from this last week. And Janet Castro, our district administrator, has done a great job of putting this together in such a way that we now have it so that when you get the email with it, you can click on it and it takes you to this version of it where you can click on the links everywhere to go to stuff. So just to go through the things on here. So today is our last district Zoom of the year. We won't do this again till January. But if you look over to the other side, Travis is going to help us put together a Blue Christmas Zoom, online Blue Christmas service on December 19th at 6:30. And so we're going to get the word out about that and hope you'll help us to share that around with folks. You'll notice below that, the save the date for the district gathering, which is we've got the planning started for that, and that's going to be on Saturday, April 5th at Sunrise Church in the Springs. The Journey is Our Home is going to be our continuing theme for our annual conference. Look in the middle there, and you'll see Travis has posted a video that he put together talking about how he has been working with churches and is looking to work with more churches around visioning. I'll let him say more about that. And then in the middle and the bottom is the video that we're going to watch here in a little bit from Carrie Newhoff. So I will get us back out of that. There we go.
Chris, can I ask you a question?
Please, yeah, jump in.
We've been doing a Blue Christmas service for the last 2 or 3 years with Ordway and Rocky Ford, and
yeah, good.
And I'm curious as to what Travis's look like, and is this something that we could do here? And
you mean something you could join in?
Yeah,
there?
and be involved in and whatnot. So
That's
just curious.
That's
Travis. I don't know how much Travis has thought through this, but Travis, go ahead and.
I hadn't thought of it more on a congregational kind of scale, but I was thinking more of really for places that I mean, everybody's welcome to participate. Don't get me wrong. Like that goes without saying. But what I was imagining would be more like folks in their homes, especially for our churches that may not have pastors available to do a Blue Christmas service, was what I was imagining. But I mean, I was still kind of coming up with ideas, so we'll be in touch if you want to include more there, Marty, or however.
Well, let's talk. And
yeah,
like I said, we've done it for the last 3 or 4 years, and we have a service that's very well received, and it's on Zoom and stuff like that. And, to whatever we could do to draw more congregations in the valley into that collaborative.
Yeah, I'd say you should definitely publicize it down there. I mean, this is like Travis was saying, this is really for folks who may not have a service close by, right?
Mhm.
And it was for everybody.
Yeah.
Or folks who it's maybe the weather's bad that week and people don't want to get out to their church. This will be an opportunity for folks to have the Blue Christmas experience this year. So everybody's invited, and
Yeah.
Or
so
even if I
we don't
can
want to
help
stop you all doing
you.
it. We
Yeah.
want you to keep doing your thing,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that if that's become an important tradition for you all,
Yeah. Yeah.
have
But
at it.
even if I can help you with yours,
Yeah,
and be a
absolutely.
part of yours, that'd be great too. Because ours is due to drop on the 18th.
Okay.
So
Yeah, let's talk.
Excellent.
Yeah, let's be in touch, Marty.
all
And
right.
yeah, I like it. I mean, it sounds weird saying this for Blue Christmas. The more the merrier, you know.
But
But I think having folks from around being a part, I think would be good. So no, let's talk, and I'll get folks yeah, I'll keep crafting, and we'll go from
okay.
there.
And
Awesome.
the truth is that's a service, it has no bounds. It
Hmm.
is a
Hmm.
service that affects lots and lots of people that we don't
Yeah.
often see
Hmm.
or feel or hear from. And so the more we can reach out and grab,
Hmm.
the better the service is. So, but
Absolutely.
Amen.
we'll talk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds
that's
good.
great.
Thank you,
All
though.
right, Travis.
Yeah.
Well, Travis, why don't you keep going?
Yeah, totally. Well, it's good to see you all tonight. A lot of my work is kind of Chris is saying, with his and the district is to some church conferences. I've had an opportunity to travel to two already for Fowler, Manzanola, and Burlington Stratton last night, and I'm had my own the Tuesday prior with the Wiley Church, and then I'm heading to West Cliff tomorrow for theirs in the evening. So I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit this week, and I got a few more coming up later, but it's good to be going around. Some of my other work tied into video you'll see on Vision, just a little snippet there. I'm starting to work with congregations on the vision process, and I've got room probably to add in maybe probably two other congregations that might be interested in being a part of that process for the spring semester. Starting in January for the year. So if folks would be interested in that, congregations or churches, or have more questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll get you plugged in and kind of craft a process that is meaningful and helpful for your congregation. And so we'll work on that. So that's all really I've got going up right now. Blue Christmas, coming up for our district. And then I've got some other kind of videos, instructional idea generating videos in the works that especially will be coming out in January as travel's a little bit more challenging. So it's cold and dark, and it's good to be indoors. So I'll be doing some video work during the dark month there, and have some stuff come out. So yeah, that's probably all I got right now. Oh, think got you muted, Chris. Happens to me all the
Trying to be
time.
polite.
No.
Yeah, so that's about all we've got as far as updates of where we're at for the district. So first of all, any questions or comments that you all have brought with you tonight, and before we kind of slide into our topic for the evening? Jeff.
Yeah, I don't know everybody here. So I'm not exactly sure I know Travis, but the others I'm not familiar with. Because since I'm in the mountains, I don't know who's in the mountains or who's in the plains or.
Well, it's a small group. We could go around and introduce ourselves real quick if you'd like.
Yeah.
Why don't we start? So me and Travis. So how about Denise and then Marty? I'm just gonna go around my screen.
I couldn't find the mute button. I'm Denise Logan. I'm from the Rocky Ford Church, and I'm the church secretary.
Okay.
Among many other things.
I'm Marty Lee. I am the pastor of Ordway and The Rocky Ford churches, and Denise is my boss, keeps me in line kind of when she can, but been around a long time. So
Yeah, that's no small task either. So, all right, Sherry and then Skip.
Hi, I'm Sherry Fairman. I serve in Buena Vista, Colorado. Quarter time, I'm there the first and third weekend of the month. And then I'm also the Mountain Sky Program Director for the Compelling Preaching Initiative. So thanks. Good to see y'all.
Thanks, Sherry. Skip and then Jeff.
First, before I introduce myself, where is Mountain View?
Mountain View is in Woodland Park.
Oh, Woodland Park. Okay.
Yeah, there's a Mountain View in Boulder, but we're in Woodland Park.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Well, I'm sort of mountains. Skip Ladd, and I'm attend Beulah, which is about 21 miles west of Pueblo in the foothills. So it's like 29-inch snowfall last week was pretty much mountains. And but I live in Pueblo, so that's out on the plains. And I'm
Right.
chairman of our single board of governance at Beulah.
Yeah, great, Skip. Thank you. All right, Jeff, and then Darla put her introduction in the chat. So go ahead,
Well,
Jeff.
I'm Jeff Wakely. I'm the pastor at Mountain View United Methodist Church here in Woodland Park. And so I guess it's
Your sound is a little muted, Jeff. I don't know if
oh, is that right?
yeah.
Let me see if I can. Yeah. Well, I don't know what the deal is with my.
Got a little microphone there. Just put it closer to your mouth, maybe.
Yeah. So I am at Mountain View here. And I'm not a member of the conference. I'm a retired member of Susquehanna Conference in Pennsylvania. So, but it's good to meet you
Great.
all.
Thank you, Jeff. Good idea. All right. Anybody have anything you brought with you tonight that you would like for us to touch on before we move along? All right, then. Well, if you think of it, you can catch us after this. So this video is, again, I put the link. Actually, I should put the link in the chat too. I will put the link in the chat. But this came across my desk. Carrie Newhoff is as Travis pointed out this afternoon, he's a Canadian. He's an evangelical, but he's what I put in the framework of evangelicals who are not radical and Christian nationalist kind of thing. He's very much kind of a guru for church leaders and does a lot of stuff. If you go to his website, you can sign up for his regular kind of newsletter, and lots of good things come across that. And this was one of them. He's done this video that he's called the 3 reasons you're losing church members. And so we're going to watch this. It's about 9 minutes. And he gives those 3 reasons, but he also gives his kind of responses to those 3 reasons and things that we can be paying attention to as we think about how we need to adapt to the new cultural situation that we're in and the people who are around us in our contexts in order to connect with people that we're just not connecting with right now, and folks who have drifted away for some of the reasons that he's going to share. So I'm going to share this, and then we'll talk a little bit about it afterwards. And if you come up with something else you'd like for us to talk about, you can stick it in the chat or just wait till we get back and you can share it then. All right, make sure I got all my buttons pushed. I need to be here.
Did you know that people who attend church 1 to 2 times a month has declined from 34% to 28% of people? So let's talk about why in this video. A study by the Institute of Family Studies has found that people attending church 1 to 2 times per month has declined from 34% down to 28%. And after reading that study, I came across an article by Ryan Burge that I shared in my weekly newsletter On the Rise. That's a newsletter where I share my top insights from the week. And the article from Ryan Burge basically says you can no longer assume that someone who says they're an evangelical will still go to church. In fact, there are as many non-attending self-described evangelicals as there are mainline Christians in America. Let me say that again, okay, because that's nuts. There are as many non-church attending self-described evangelicals as there are mainline Christians in America. I mean, that blew my mind when I read it. And the trend isn't going away. In fact, it's accelerating. It impacts, if you think about it, almost every church, regardless of size, denomination, or even location, and really changes the mix of people that you're trying to reach. It probably also marks a seismic shift in how the church will do ministry in the future. Of course, let's be honest, high attendance is never the goal, okay? The goal is not just to fill a room, it's to fulfill a mission. But your attendance shouldn't be ignored because it's a sign of something deeper that every church leader is going to have to wrestle with over the next few years. The first key to addressing what's happening is to understand why it's happening. And that's what I want to cover in the rest of our time together in this video. So why are even committed attendees attending less often? Reason number one, greater affluence. Believe it or not, even with high inflation and crazy house prices, greater affluence is impacting people's church attendance. You see, money gives people options. And if your church is at all engaging the middle class, the upper middle class, or a suburban demographic, an interesting trend is happening right now. The true middle class is shrinking because more of the middle class is becoming upper class or lower class. There are simply more affluent people than there were even a few decades ago, which explains why so many average people indulge their obsessions. They want the perfect HGTV, Pinterest-styled home. They want great cars. They're taking vacations on a regular basis, and they have the lifestyle of the mega wealthy, even when they're not mega wealthy. Now, naturally, this leaves a huge theological vacuum, a void about ministry and how to deal with people who are affluent and how to deal with the poor. But it also helps explain what's actually happening in the suburbs and increasingly with the reurbanization of many cities as the affluent move back downtown. I'm not arguing that this is the way things should be, but if you look at the number of younger people who are traveling, millennials who have an affluent lifestyle, I'm simply showing that this is what appears to be happening in our culture. Again, people with money have options. They have technology options, they have travel options, and they have options for their kids. And arguably, that affluence may be one of the factors moving them further away from a committed engagement with the mission of the local church. Not saying it's right, just saying it's true. Here's reason number two, self-directed spirituality. People are looking less to churches and leaders to help them grow spiritually and more to other options. I mean, think about it. We live in an era where no parent makes a visit to a doctor's office without having first Googled the symptoms of a child's illness and got a recommended course of treatment for the doctor. Just ask any family physician. It kind of drives the doctors nuts. But when was the last time, okay, forget medicine for a minute. When was the last time you bought a car without completely researching it online? Well, believe it or not, people are doing the same thing with their faith. In an age where we have access to everything, more and more people are self-directing their spirituality, and that is for better and for worse. Another characteristic of the postmodern mind is declining trust and reliance on organizations and institutions. The church, in a lot of people's mind, is seen as just another institution. Now, I don't actually believe that's what the church is. I think it's a movement. I think it's from Christ. It's not an institution. But if you look at it, that's what a lot of people think. And some churches behave like an institution, and the postmodern mind instinctively moves away from it as a result. And now for reason number three, people are attending church less often, failure to see a direct benefit. This one's tough to look at, but let's be honest. People always make time for the things they value most. If they say, I don't have time for it, it's usually a smokescreen for, I don't want to do it. And if they're not making time for church, that tells you something. Now, even among people who say they love the church and who might say they love your church, if declining attendance is an issue, chances are it's because they're not seeing a direct benefit. They don't see the value in being there week after week. And what you're discovering often, or what a lot of church leaders are discovering, is that what used to connect no longer connect. So what do? Well, you either change or you settle for reaching fewer people. Now, the good news is there's a generation that's sick of hype and is ready for something deeper. And I think if you elevate the three things I'm going to talk about next, you're probably going to see deeper engagement and greater attendance. First, they're looking for less presentation and more presence. You know, you can spend $1 million on audio, visual, and lighting. It's not going to result in 1 million more people. I mean, you got to have certain lighting, you got to have proper sound. I get it. But if you're going to sink $1 million into something, don't necessarily sink it into that. And if what you have is good enough, all right? What they're looking for is a little less presentation, a little more presence of God, authenticity from you, the presence of other people. They're looking for a connection. So less presentation, more presence. Second, less noise, more space. All right. We are so programmed. People don't get a break. Their heads are buzzing. Their phones are buzzing. I mean, we don't get any silence in culture anymore. What about if you created space? Space for people to slow down. Space for people to connect with God. Space for people to reflect, to confess, to pray, to think. You see, if your service isn't just a bunch of noise and a bunch of hype, and you actually create some space for people to have a real, authentic connection with God, I think they're going to be drawn to it because it's an alternative to the culture, not an echo of it. And then the third thing, less head, more heart. Now, I'm giving you bullet points in this video, okay? I'm a head guy. This is what I think about all the time. But I think what people are looking for is a connection with your heart. They're looking for a connection, some vulnerability on the part of the leader, an admission that I don't always get everything right. They're looking for their hearts to connect with God and connect with people. So a little less head, a little more heart, a little less noise, a little more space, a little less presentation, a little more presence. That's what the next generation and for people who are disengaging in church are looking for. And that provides a direct benefit, because when people fail to see a direct benefit, it always results in declining engagement. So the question becomes, what are you going to do or not do that leaves people feeling like there's not much value? Flip it, make sure there's a lot of value there, and I think you'll see people attend more often. See, all these trends are a witness to something deeper. And what's deeper is our culture is shifting and it's changing rapidly. So church leaders who fail to recognize this aren't able to capitalize on the changes enough to respond and to actually adjust course so that you're accomplishing your mission. What I've learned over the years is that change is unkind to the unprepared. So prepare. And I hope this video has helped prepare you for what you're facing and where you want to go next.
All right. We didn't even have a commercial come up in the middle of it this time. That happened earlier today. All right. Well, give me your first impressions. What you heard there.
I think it's true. I think there's a lot to be said for that video, that we have to offer space and we have to offer something for people to look to and look towards. That there is a disconnect between the church and the community, and how do we bridge that gap? I think a lot of what he said was really, really powerful, and it's something we need to reach out and try to incorporate into our Sunday morning worship, and not just our Sunday morning worship, but in the attitude of our church as a whole. I mean, Chris, you know me, you know my churches, they're very outreach oriented and things like that, but it hasn't necessarily translated into bringing more people into the church. We're taking the church to the people, but we're not drawing the people in. And I think he addressed a lot of things that allow us to give people space and time and feeling and hope if they come into the church, instead of trying to lay out a process for them, that we include their process in our process. If that doesn't sound too weird, but I'm always looking for something new to help bring people to the church, because that's what our congregations are looking for now. Is we've done the outreach, we're doing the work in the community, and it's almost like we're doing more in the community than we are in the congregation. And where's that disconnect coming from at this point? So just my thoughts. It's
Muted again. Yes, thank you, Marty.
Yeah, I think can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
I think I've been around a long time. Been doing I think one of the one thing he said about self-directed spirituality is probably, I hate to say the born again movement killed the church, but it really placed the church it just made it very difficult to be the church, to be the body of Christ. Why do all I have to do is believe in Jesus? And that part of, I think that's self-directed. We live in a culture where people can look up on YouTube to find out how to do things. We are a do-it-yourself. There's all kinds of do-it-yourself stuff, and that sense of community has been under our faith has been undermined. We've talked about this salvation of belief for Jesus Christ, but what we haven't talked about is the community in Christ, and that's the hardest thing to create. And that's, I think, one of the things that we as a congregation, for example, in the recent, with everything going on with the LGBTQ and changing the discipline, is what have people said? Oh, it's not scripture. It goes against scripture. Okay. They look at scripture as a handbook. All I have to do is look at the scripture. It's a handbook. I have to follow that. And that has, rather than focusing on community. And so, that's the hard part. My thing with, I'm not a doctrinal person. My focus in my church is community. We accept everybody. The problem becomes is I want my church to be inclusive. It has to be where I am. I've got Caris College. I've got Teller County is really interesting up here. And Sherry could probably tell you, all the churches in town are evangelical and doctrinal. Okay. And I can't compete with them, or this church can't compete with them, but they're welcoming and they're caring. And the thing, what's interesting about Methodist is that part of community, they've missed that. They come in with the 4 spiritual laws, and I say, hey guys, there's more to being Methodist than that. And so that's the difficult part, because we have pushed the salvation part so hard that we've lost the community. Well, salvation, I just have to profess and believe in Jesus. I'm done. That's the self-directed thing. Now I got to get them into community. Well, I don't want to be in community. I don't get anything out of it. It's boring, whatever. And so we sort of, my thing is we sort of shot ourselves in the foot, over the years and still are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's,
Good.
I agree with him on the self. I think that's the hardest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. When people can find something that is satisfying and fulfilling, even inspiring for them on YouTube or TikTok or a podcast that they find their way to, it makes it a lot tougher for them to think that they need a community of faith to be connected with. And I think you're absolutely right. So, that we've talked about for years. The declining reliance and declining trust in institutions, and we as a large mainline church are an institution. And so for us to figure out how to, we started out as a movement, and we've shifted, and the world has then shifted around us again. And so trying to figure out what that looks like. I mean, the failure to see a direct benefit, I hear that all the time. I hear that all the time in relationship to the institution itself, but even deeper, people finding a direct benefit from being a part of our local church. So Marty, I think what you were talking about, in terms of how active you all are in providing resources for people in your community outside of your church walls, because you are phenomenal at that. And you mentioned how you might change your Sunday service. We try to talk about this a lot. This is in the whole fresh expressions vein, where we're trying to say, don't change what you're doing, because the people who are there, that's what they rely on. And we don't want to change that, because that then disrupts those church people, right? So how do we take the things that he was sharing with us to heart in such a way that we may create a different experience, even in a different location, in people's homes or whatever that may look like. And I had this conversation with somebody on Sunday. We have to get back to thinking church is where we are, not where our building is, right? And so how do we take church as embodied in us? How do we take church to a place where other non-church people will have some sense of safety, right? In connecting with us. This doesn't exist with what we do on Sundays. So I think Marty may be talking on the phone. Who else has something to share? Sherry, yeah.
Chris, so interesting to what he was saying. For years, the church has been irrelevant. The competition on Sundays are just out of this world, kids sports, the list just begins and goes on and on. And the one thing that he said that really kind of hit me for such a time as this in this season. So for y'all who, Chris knows this, Travis, I'm not sure if you know this yet or not. My church is high liturgy, high tradition. I mean, you robe every Sunday. I don't care if it's 110 degrees outside. I am in a robe, and it is what it is. This last summer, I said, well, can I just wear like a dress with a clergy collar that would still look, I don't even know if they know it wasn't a robe. And they said, absolutely not. You have to robe, right? This last Sunday, I'm like, can we please turn the heat down? We don't need it 80 degrees inside. You're trying to kill the pastor here. I'm going to pass out one of these weeks. Trust me. But you know what two comments. One thing is, like, in this season, they are really, really, really struggling with their faith. They don't believe God is listening. They don't think their prayers are being answered. The election really threw them off kilter in a very remarkable, unexpected. I expected some ripples, but not to this degree. And so I've intentionally built that quiet space into worship. 3 times in the last couple months, not to say I'm doing anything right. I've built quiet time into the benediction, like the Julian of Norwich body prayer this last Sunday. That was the benediction, walking them through those things. And the comments afterwards are just amazing to me, that people of such deep faith who go by the tradition to the letter of the law. I mean, I use page 7 in the hymnal as my order of worship. I can't do a normal call to worship. And yet this experiment of doing something different is speaking to their souls in a deep and rich way. So what the video was sharing about building those spaces, making it a different experience, I think, I don't know, that struck me as he's onto something there. And the second thing, to Marty's point earlier, and even in Woodland Park, I think this would be something great. We have a historic building, it's on the registry, beautiful church. We don't have bathrooms, you gotta go outside to the other building, because of the era in which it was built, which is fine. But over Advent, I have convinced them to create a contemplative space. We're going to use sanctified art. I actually, outside of the ER this afternoon, I ordered the artwork. I've got it all printed. I've got postcards coming. And the sanctified art is going to be the story. And so we're going to open the sanctuary on Wednesdays and Saturdays during Advent. And we are going to have the artwork. And it's going to just be a contemplative space. I pray that speaks to people outside of who currently come at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. Or all the other, so we have more, every time I learned about another church in Buena Vista this week, I've been there a year. I didn't know they have this many churches, but the population is growing. They're building so many apartments, so many townhomes, so many houses, and they're not coming into the church. So how do we begin to be relevant to those outside the church, whether it's go to them or create a space where they can come and be and experience the divine? So I just share those 2 points because that spoke to me loudly during that video. Thanks for sharing that, Chris.
Yeah. I think the things that he shared there, less presentation, more presence. We've used the word authenticity for years, right? We've talked about needing to be authentic, and that can run the gamut from being more spontaneous and less scripted, all the way to being very high liturgy and very scripted, and different people respond in different ways depending on whether they sense it being an authentic expression, of worship or connection with a higher power, or, I mean, it's so I think, like I said before, it doesn't matter, I don't think, what your liturgy looks like on a Sunday morning, depending, it just may be that there needs to be an alternative of some kind. And Sherry, I love, I mean, you all being a Methodist Episcopal congregation, I mean, there is a lot more appreciation there for the liturgy, and if those are older folks moving to Buena Vista, they're not the younger folks. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, there's no template that I can put out there, but I think these are some ideas that we can look at what we're doing and put them through a filter, right? Of whether we are we do on a Sunday morning is a presentation, or is it an invitation to engage, right? I mean, that there's and that can happen in high liturgy or low liturgy, and less noise, more space. I mean, I love the way you described that. Your folks have really responded to that, and I think every church has to figure out if that's something that the existing congregation who are already there need and would value, or if that's something that we create space in an alternative setting so that we can start bringing in people who would be more amenable to that. And then the less head, more heart part. I mean, there is nothing, for most United Methodists, there's nothing that a study won't solve, right? Whether it's a book study or a Bible study of some kind. We are in our heads so much as United Methodists. I think for us to to figure out what it looks like. And this goes back to the authenticity piece, but being vulnerable, like he said, being able to create a space where people don't feel like they've got to have all the answers, right? That is an alternative for us to the dominant, especially in so many of our smaller communities around our district. The dominant Christian ethos is this very, like Jeff was saying, this very scripted 4 spiritual laws. You got to believe this, or you're going to hell, kind of thing. That's not us, right? So how do we provide a space for people to do the searching and the wondering, and being curious? Yeah, those are important. All right, I've said enough. Who else has something you'd like to add before we call it a night? All right. Well, like I said, I don't need to keep you a long time tonight. I really don't. So I want you to know that you're all in my prayers. Jeff, you have something?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have any of you, we had 2 incidences. Two interesting things. We did a seminar for mental health for Teller County. We cooperated with the Teller County Mental Health Alliance, and we did a seminar on behavioral health issues in Teller County. And so the professionals came in. We had some professionals come in and introduce themselves, and they introduced themselves. Some had pronouns, and that's becoming. And several people who had attended came up to one of our members thinking he was the pastor and began to chew him out. Clark wasn't. That was Clark. Clark wasn't the pastor, but talking about how pronouns were so unbiblical and all this stuff. And then the other day, I just got a letter. I got an email. I don't know who this person is, but evidently they attended. And what they heard in my sermon, and I think if it's the issue I preached on was after the election, I preached on trust. The issue of healing. How do we build trust again in one another? And I was accused of being political. And the thing I don't know if this is the case. Once in a while, I think I get people who come in who I don't know if they're spying or if they're looking for something to jump on or to get on me. There was an article in the paper about how, and I talked about being an inclusive church, about welcoming LGBTQ and all this. And one of the responses to the letters is they gave me a Bible lesson about all these scriptures. But I'm just wondering, is anybody having that in their church? That somebody's coming in and sort of doing that, sort of coming in to see what you're doing and to be critical of you? Because one of the things I've noticed is that on YouTube, we're on YouTube, and I don't know if you're on YouTube. I noticed that there's some sites that are still sort of giving us a hard time from the GMs, churches that formerly were United Methodists. There's one guy in Oklahoma who's a real pain in the, in what he does. And I'm just wondering if anybody's getting that in their churches. Has it had somebody come in and with that, our churches are experiencing that.
I have not had that in Wiley, but if they were coming out to Wiley to do that, they really need a hobby, because they've made a real choice to make it all the way to Wiley. One thing, just to offer on if you are getting any kind of comments online on YouTube, Facebook, wherever it is okay to block people if they cross a line or if they are truly not offering anything constructive. That is not something I think in the church we want to do. That's not something I would want to do. That's not like you have to cross a line to reach that point, but it is okay. And the second part is if it's online, there may not be an actual person behind that. there, like on some of that could be bot driven, AI driven, extra stuff going there. I'm not trying to be conspiracy theory crazy on that there, but some of the repetitive, it's just like keywords match, bot spits it out right there on that there. So there may not actually be a person behind that particular, but rather by many. So feel free to block if it's a problem. Don't feel bad about that at all. So
and Jeff, I would say most of our churches don't have that issue, because the folks have left. They're smaller communities where people don't take the time to come down the street to start a fight. They may be saying things about our churches in their church, right? But they're not coming in for the most part. You are in a unique location. Woodland Park is a unique place, where people do seek out those fights. And sorry, Travis, you gonna say something?
Oh, I was just saying, like, I mean, my prayers are truly with you all in that congregation, you know, with you, Jeff, and that, because that is a challenge. I mean, no, I mean, I'm preaching to choir. That is a challenging situation to be in, and I just would offer any support we can do for you all. Just know we're here for you in that.
Yeah, and like I said the other night, sorry, Sherry, just a second. Like I said the other night, when I was there, it is a unique, and I think a really important challenge for that church, that congregation to rise to, in terms of being able to embrace the notion that that's the only church in the community that truly welcomes everybody. There's no other congregation in that community that welcomes everybody, and what that looks like could be complicated, right? And helping members of the congregation to articulate that in a way that people across the theological spectrum within the congregation can feel comfortable with that, right? I mean, there's going to be a tension in that congregation always, but I think that's hopefully something that congregation can lean into. But you have a tough place there, and I think you have some challenges that most of our other churches, not just most, nearly all of our other churches, do not have to deal with. So, Sherry, do you have something? And then we can.
No, I was just going to share, Jeff, being from living in El Paso County, I think probably one of the most conservative nonprofit evangelical counties in Colorado. There can be lots of challenges. What I have found, good, bad, or indifferent, is, once they start to try to bite, their teeth really, they don't have much. They don't have much to continue perpetually. So they come at you, they snap, and then they just kind of fade away, has been my experience. Prayerfully, that will be yours up in Woodland Park. Because it's just such a different, and in Buena Vista, they're not going to come at us because we're two female pastors and they really think we're going to hell. So, we're all good. But but that's been my experience down here in El Paso County is, they'll come at you very quickly and very aggressively, but they really don't have much teeth to stick. So I pray that's helpful.
Yeah, and I would add, just at the end of this is probably backward, but the book Unclobber, I don't know if you've seen this before or not. Unclobber by Colby Martin is a book that takes on the folks who use those clobber passages in Scripture, those half a dozen passages that you always hear, but this book kind of takes on that tendency of some of our more traditionalist friends. So I take a look at that, see if that helps any. All right, well, I'm mindful of time here. We need to call it a night, so I'm gonna say a benediction, and then I'd love it if you could unmute and say goodnight to each other. And I hope you have a blessed Thanksgiving, and in whatever group you do that in. I'm going, like I think I told you, I'm going to Georgia for the week with my family to be with my wife's family at the beach at Jekyll Island. So I'll be gone next week for that. But then again, we're not going to, other than the Blue Christmas service, we're not going to have another one of these before Christmas. So I hope you all have a really meaningful Advent season and can really lean into it and observe it and sense what God is doing in your life, in your family's life, and in your church's life together. So go in peace to love and serve God in all that you do. Amen. All right.
Good
Can you
night.
unmute? Say goodnight to each other.
Good night. Good night.
All right.
Night, everybody.
Good to
Good
see you
night.
all.
Take care. God bless.
And everybody.
Everyone.